Good morning. This is Melody Campbell, and I'm the host of the Get More Business Show, and it's awesome to be with you here today. And, if those of you that are listening in other parts of the country, I'm here in beautiful Salem, Oregon, where it's not too hot and it's not too cold, and there's gorgeous weather this morning, and it's only 9 a.m. So those of you that are on the East Coast and it's noon already and half your day is over, I want to thank you for being here with us and listening into the show. I am very excited always to do the show, and I want to just invite you to check in at the show page, which is getmorebusinessshow.com. You can listen to all my past guests and all my past topics. I received an email this last week where I was told by one of my listeners that a lot of the stuff that she was listening to was the very same stuff that she'd heard about in some of her college classes. So the question came to mind, if you listen to all of my shows, could you qualify for, something extra in your degree because it's like a college education? I don't know, you decide, but I've definitely lots of information in my past and current shows, and you're absolutely sure to learn something. And so that's getmorebusinessshow.com. And then one more mention, I want to invite you, since it's back to school season, and if any of you have kids or grandkids and you're out there shopping for backpacks and notebook paper and blue jeans and shirts and jackets, if you have a business, let me invite you to consider going back to school for your business. Now, I have a very special opportunity that I'd like you to take advantage of, and there's some qualifications, so you're going to have to check out the qualifications. The opportunity is a small business grant, an educational grant that I'm offering. To find out about this, you need to go to northwestschoolofbusiness.com/grant. It's a $5,000 educational grant, and the school its focus of the school is on the revenue streams of your business, how to create systems to generate more leads, more conversions, more transactions, higher profits, and create that whole package, that whole system will give you the opportunity to create $1 million business. And everything you need to know about how we do that is at northwestschoolofbusiness.com/grant. Head over there, not now, wait till the show's over, and see if you qualify for that. Oh, today I have an awesome guest. I'm very excited to talk about the topic today. The topic is negotiation. Some of us kind of avoid that. We don't like to, that sounds like a synonym for confrontation, but it's not really if you know what you're doing. Tali Raphaely, my guest, is an attorney as well as a president and managing member of a national real estate title firm, and he's built his reputation based on his negotiating skills. Raphaely's expertise is drawn from years of negotiation, optimistic perspective, and ability to analyze and understand people, their choice of words, reactions to body language, and overall demeanor. In his book, The Complete Guide on How to Negotiate, it will enable readers to master the techniques of a professional negotiator. Welcome, Tali. I appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you very much, Melody. Great to be here with you.
I want to talk, well, first of all, I really like the way you set up the book. And you talk about sad Sam and skilled Sam, and you kind of go through everyday scenarios, everything from negotiating, if you will, with your kids to get out of bed in the morning, all the way to negotiating for reservations or with your boss. And we really go through a lot of negotiations really without thinking about it, but that's what they are, right?
Absolutely. All day long you're negotiating. Sometimes you don't realize that people think that they're only negotiating when they're buying a car or selling a house or asking for a raise, but you're negotiating throughout your life and everyday life all day long. Anytime you're dealing with people and somebody has something that you want, somebody can help you in some way and you want them to do so, you can help somebody, or you have something that somebody else wants. There's negotiations going on all the time. You're negotiating with your kids when you want them to do something and they don't want to. So it's a negotiation. How do you get them to do it? You're negotiating with your spouse when you're talking about planning the family trip. You're negotiating with your spouse when you're planning your futures and you're talking about where you're going to send your kids to school. And you're negotiating with your spouse when you're talking about family chores and responsibilities. You're negotiating all the time. You're negotiating with your friends when you decide on what restaurant everybody's going to go to, where you guys are going to go out, where you guys are going to take your trip, who's going to be the designated driver. It's constant. You're negotiating when a hostess doesn't have a reservation for you and you really want to go to this restaurant. That's still a negotiation. She still has something that you want. He or she still has something you want, and there might still be a way for them to provide that for you and for them to see it as a win-win as well. So anytime you get no as an answer, you're negotiating. If you stop there, you're not. But if you continue on and see if there's a way to still work things out, it's a negotiation.
It's true. That's true. And it's funny that you mentioned about negotiating with your kids. I remember before I had kids, I just thought it was going to be as simple as saying, because I said so. I have 3 teenagers now, and I gave that up a long time ago. It doesn't work. It does not work. First of all, before we go any further with this, I want to make sure that my listeners know how to find your book. So I'm going to say the title, but then I want you to spell your name for everyone, because I want to make sure they find this little jewel of a book. Okay, it's The Complete Guide on How to Negotiate. Master the art of getting what you want in business and in life. So go ahead. I want you to spell your name so that this book will come right up in the search results for them.
Thank you, Melody. I appreciate that. The easiest way to do this, if Amazon is selling the book, as is a bunch of other websites and bookstores as well. But if you go to Amazon, that's the easiest way, and type in my name, you'll find it very, very easily. It's Tali, T as in Tom, A-L-I. Last name is Raphaeli. It's R-A, P as in Paul, H-A-E-L-Y as in yes. I find actually that if you just type in T-A-L-I and then a space, and just start typing my last name, R, Tali Raphaely comes up at that point. And I don't think you're right to the link to the book, and that's as easy as that, and you buy the book on Amazon.
Awesome. And I do have a link to the book in the show description, so the link is there as well. And I like the fact that when you spelt your last name, when you said Y, Y is not one of those letters that are very difficult, but I like that you said it's Y as in yes. I like that. That's pretty cool. That's cool.
Well, I also don't leave anything for chance. Somebody could mishear that as an I, so you don't take any chances. I don't assume anything, and that actually is part of my negotiation strategy as well. You never assume anything. Don't assume you know what the other person's thinking or how your words came out. Don't assume anything. If you have something to say, if you're communicating something, make sure that the other person understood it the way that you meant it, because a lot of times miscommunications arise because people don't understand that. They assume that somebody else understands where they're coming from, and people come in from different perspectives, different backgrounds, and different personalities.
Yeah, that is so true.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I want to add, Mel, they could also go to my website, and the book is on there as well. That takes you to a link, and again, the website would be Tali, T-A-L-I, Raphaeli, R-A-P as in Paul, H-A-E-L-Y as in yes.com. That's my website. But thank you very much.
Awesome. Okay. Well, what I want to know is what makes you an expert on the topic of negotiation. So can you give me a little bit of background on why I'd want to read your book, and, because what qualifies you for this?
Well, I've been an attorney for about 12 years. I own a nationwide real estate title company. It's called Armour Settlement Services. That's A-R-M-O-U-R. And we do real estate title work all over the country. We deal with the biggest vendors, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, all the big banks, all the big real estate companies. We've got a nice big staff, and we've been around for a long time now, and we're constantly negotiating. I'm constantly negotiating as an owner of the company. I'm negotiating with my staff. I'm negotiating with clients on our fees. I'm negotiating with vendors on their fees. I'm negotiating with my employees when they want raises. It's a constant. All day long, I find myself negotiating. It's been going on for a long time. Obviously, as an attorney representing people, I'm finding myself negotiating at all times as well. And then I also own investment properties, so when I buy and sell properties, and also I've bought and sold real estate-based businesses as well. And obviously, anytime you buy and sell, you're negotiating. And I find that I also have this knack for motivating people and for getting along with people and understanding people and giving people the benefit of the doubt and understanding where they're coming from, seeing things from another person's perspective, and all that ties in to being a very good negotiator.
Right, right. That's interesting. But why do you think that negotiating is such an intimidating topic? Like I said earlier, it's like, negotiating is what did I say that was a synonym for? But I mean, it has a negative connotation, right? So why do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean, people use it they see it as a synonym for confrontation. They think they automatically assume there's going to be confrontation. It's because people naturally believe it has to be win-lose. I have to get what I want, and I have to take it from you, and you have to be unhappy. But somehow I exert my force or my leverage on you, and I get what I want. And that's not how it has to be. That's not how it should be. I don't encourage that. It never is that way with me and with my negotiating strategies. People have a problem, especially there's a very big internal conflict because people see it as this conflict, as we said, as confrontation. But at the same time, people have this very, very strong desire to be liked, to be likable, to have connections with other people. So a lot of people don't understand how you could possibly have these two things mesh. A confrontation where I'm still going to be liked. It's very hard for people to imagine that could actually happen. But if handled the right way, it's not a confrontation. And if handled the right way, you could be tough and you could stand your ground and still be very, very likable and respected. It doesn't ever have to become personal, and it never has to be a confrontation. Instead, it's an environment of cooperation, everybody getting along, and especially very good communication.
Right. Well, a lot of times when you're negotiating, whether it's with your kids or your boss, you tend to think that somehow it's going to turn into a disagreement. So how do you keep it from turning into a disagreement?
Well, first of all, you have to realize that there are going to be things that the two parties don't agree on, and that's fine. You embrace that. That's all part of the process. If that wasn't the case, it would be easy. Anybody could do it. So, first of all, be aware of the fact that that's going to happen, and it's okay. Embrace it. Be happy that happens, because that provides you with an opportunity to fix things and to solve the problems. So, and to answer your question more directly, what happens is people allow things to get personal. And that's what you have to really work hard at not letting happen. So what happens is people's egos, their pride take over, and once you let that happen, of course you're going to have disagreement because now it's become personal and now emotions are involved. And once you get emotions involved like that, it's very, very hard to see eye to eye and to communicate effectively. So what you do is, in order to not let things become personal, first you have to be very careful not to be condescending. You have to not be insulting. You have to be careful to make sure that you don't say things that are going to provide someone else and cause someone to take offense to what you say. How do you do that? By putting yourself in their shoes, and before you say something, remembering how you would possibly feel if somebody said that to you. And then on the other hand, make sure that when you're dealing with someone, you're dealing with a person. This person comes to you with their background and their experiences and their personality and their skills and all that. So give that person the benefit of the doubt. They're coming to you with the best that they've got, the best they're using their resources as effectively as they can. Not everybody is going to be as reasonable as you or as smart as you or as cooperative as you. You've got to just look at that person and say, this person is doing the best they can. I'm not going to take anything personally. They don't mean anything personal by it. They just feel this way very strongly. Let me see how we can work it out. So, again, you don't let it get personal on your end, and you also don't take things personally because you make sure that you realize this person is doing the best they can.
I was thinking about that, and I'm thinking about like current situations I'm involved in, and negotiating with my sales agents or even with my children. I think when I find myself getting emotionally involved on the topic, it's really hard not to get personal. So, how do you kind of separate that so you're a little more detached? So you're not quite so emotionally invested in whatever it is that you're negotiating?
People usually get emotional because of one of a couple of things happen. A lot of times it's because you feel somebody's taking advantage of you, so you automatically get emotional, you get defensive, you get closed off, and you get angry. That's one reason. Or maybe somebody's insulted you, or they've attacked that very fragile ego that we all have, and that's a big no-no, because once somebody lashes out at that ego, they've created an enemy out of you. So you have to be aware of these things. So what you do is you don't let those things affect you. You basically always say to yourself, this person means well. You have to say to yourself, all right, this person is pretty adamant about this. Why is it so? let me do my best to see things from their point of view. And then before you know it, you may realize that you've done something to upset them, or in the past you didn't come through as you were supposed to, and they remember that. Or maybe they're having a very bad day, or maybe there's something terrible going on in their life that you don't know about. I mean, everybody walks around with their baggage. Nobody's got a perfect life, no matter what it looks like on the outside. So you tell yourself, I don't really know what else this person is going through. You know, maybe I just caught them on a bad day. Yeah, it sucks for me, but you know what? They're still a person. They're doing the best they can. So if I give them the benefit of the doubt, it changes everything. So I guess what I'm trying to say with this is realize where the person's coming from. Try your best to put yourself in their shoes. When you do that, you realize, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, that sounds like a common theme. I hear you say that over and over, to try to see things from the other person's point of view. How? How do you do that?
You really have to change places with them. You really have to conceptualize that. You have to sit in their seat, and you have to say to yourself, how would I feel if somebody just did that to me? Or if you know anything about the history or what they've come to the table with or anything about their past or what they're going through now, you have to say to yourself, okay, this is affecting them in a different way than it may affect me. So some people are more anxious by nature. So you may be a laid-back person. You may not need a whole lot of structure. And this person needs structure. And this, for whatever reason, these negotiations are not structured completely the way that they would like, and it's all over the place, and you love that, but they're not comfortable with it, and they're starting to get agitated. You have to understand this person is wired differently than me. So let me give this person the benefit of the doubt. This is bothering them. They don't want to be in a bad mood. They don't want to be bothered. So let me just do my best to see it from their point of view. I've got to just try to understand. I've got to listen to this person. So the most important thing is really to listen, ask questions, ask open-ended questions. Get to know this person. Get to know where they're coming from. Get to know what's bothering them. Get to know what their goals, their wants, their needs are. The more questions you ask, the more you engage them in conversation, the more you're going to learn about them and their position and their goals, and you're going to see what's bothering them and what's not bothering them. And you really just have to be aware. You've got to really be aware of how you come across, how you're showing up to the world and how you're showing up to this person in this negotiation. It's not easy, but it certainly can be done once you really master this and you really start realizing this throughout the process, and you do this in your everyday life as well. You really, whenever you have any relationship, any conversation, any negotiation, any conflict, do your best first before you start getting upset at the other person. What did I do here? Did I play any part in this getting to this point? If I did, all right, let me back off. Let me cool down, because I realize now that I added to this fire, and let me now understand where they're coming from. And when you do that, it becomes easier. It doesn't happen automatically. It's something you have to work on, but it can be done. I've taught many people to do this, and it works. And all of a sudden, they take the emotion out. You know, a lot of times you have to dig deep. Sometimes what happens is we have pretty fragile egos, and there are things that people can do. There are trigger points that we have. And if somebody pushes one of those buttons, that's when we want to lash out. So you have to also become more aware of your own wiring and understand what those buttons are for yourself. And when somebody pushes those buttons, try to understand, why does that upset me so much? Because a lot of times it's not them, it's you. It's they may have accidentally said something or done something that hit one of those buttons, and now you're upset, and now you've got emotions involved. It doesn't have to be that way if you can just deal with those things and understand them and realize when it's happening. So it's very important. Get to know yourself a little better. I talk about that all the time. All these things play a part, and together they make you a master negotiator.
Yeah. I hear you say the word listen a lot. And I don't know if other people are like me, but when I think of negotiating, I think in terms of doing a lot of talking, saying my side of the story, but I hear you say a lot about listening. So it's a little bit more about being quiet than it is about talking. And you mention in your book something about the silent treatment. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. Well, the silent treatment, there's a couple of times when this comes into play, and it's a huge negotiating strategy. There are times when, in any conversation, there's a lull. There's silence on both sides. Somebody may have just said something dramatic, or somebody may have answered a pretty important question, and there's silence. What oftentimes happens is they see silence as an uncomfortable thing. They don't like when there's a conversation and there's silence. People automatically want to start some chatter. They want to fill that silence. It's in those moments when you have that uncomfortable silence and you want to fill that emptiness with some noise, that's when a lot of times you're going to say something that's going to hurt you in your negotiation. And I'll give you an example. You may say something like, they may offer you $500 for whatever it is that you're selling, and you may say no. That's too low. We were hoping to get more than that. And then they're silent, and they don't say anything. Well, now you're looking at their silence, and you're thinking, maybe you start imagining what they're thinking, and one thing you're imagining is, okay, they're not going to go any higher. Now they're upset with me. Now they think I'm being greedy. Oh boy, what do I do? If they were still wanting to work something out with me, they would automatically respond. They would say something. Instead, they're just looking at me. They're silent. I think they're probably thinking, I can't believe this guy is so unreasonable. So what do? You start assuming in your head what this person's thinking, and you immediately say something like, well, okay, we're negotiable. I mean, we're not asking for that much more. You automatically start justifying things. You get defensive because there's quiet time. And you know what? The other person may not have at all been thinking what you thought they were thinking. They may have realized that you were going to be asking for a lot more. And they were just digesting the information and doing some math in their head. So what I always say is just pause. Just let the other person feel that silence before you do, because it's when you have that uncomfortable silence, that's when people will say things that later they'll regret. Very, very important. And back to this listening in general. When you listen, that's when you learn about the other side's position, their goals, their wants, their needs. Sometimes they'll even tell you in not as many words, but they'll tell you exactly what the bottom line is. So you're not going to learn anything when you're talking. You're only going to learn when you're listening to the other party, asking questions, and getting their responses. Okay.
Yeah, I like that. I definitely been doing a lot more asking questions and listening. And yesterday I was meeting with a new client, and I started out just by asking him questions and getting him to talking. And I realized in his facial expressions and in his body language that it was, and we'd never actually sat down and had a very long conversation anymore. I had originally met him at a networking meeting. So this was our first lengthy conversation, more than 30 or 60 seconds. And I could see a sense of release and relief in him just telling me his story, and as we decided whether or not we were going to work together. And I just, having just gone through your book, I was just kind of interested in that process as he just started telling me these stories about his business and how he got to where he was at in his business. And then I recognized something in his body language that all of a sudden he realized, I'm telling all of this to a complete stranger. I mean, there was a context. He knew that I was a professional, but all of a sudden he realized that he was just releasing. Now, there was no private, it was all business related, but suddenly he realized. So I want you to talk to me a little bit about how you use, the observation of their body language and their facial expression, and then as they're telling you what they're saying might be congruent or not congruent with their facial expression and body language, and how you use all of that in negotiations.
Well, you've got to be able to understand people, and sometimes people are going to say one thing, but you can tell they mean something else, or their heart's not in it, or they're just saying it because they feel like they have to. A lot of times, someone's body language, their facial expressions speak a lot louder than any words can ever speak. So you have to be looking at everything. You'd be hurting yourself if you're not looking at every single cue, whether it's verbal or nonverbal, to see what that person's thinking. So what happens is somebody may throw out an offer, it may be a number, they may say, $1,000. And the way they say it, if you look at them and you look at the expressions, they're either saying it with confidence or they're saying it in a way where they know it's probably going to be shot down. There's so many ways that they can show you. You can see that they're guarded. You can see they're defensive. You can see they're overly confident. You can see that they're happy to be talking to you. You can see they're engaging. You can see that they're connecting with you. All those things play a part in a negotiation, so you have to be aware of all those things. Sometimes you can see maybe somebody's being a little dishonest with you, or maybe they're embellishing, or they're leaving something out. You're looking at hand gestures. You're looking at all those types of signs that somebody is maybe keeping something from you, or maybe you're not getting the full story, or maybe it's not really what they want to say. And this goes on in life, obviously, when you're talking to anybody, whether it's a friend, a spouse, child, parent, you're always looking at, it's a lot different when you're in person with somebody, face to face. You're seeing a lot of things that you can't see on the phone or in an email or anything like that. So you'd be foolish not to use all those things, all those things that you have available to you, not to use those to your advantage. So it's very important to not only be listening, but also be watching.
Yeah, those are all cues, and they're important cues to making the situation go so that it's beneficial to both parties. So I just want to, in case somebody has joined us, halfway through listening in, the book that we're talking about that Tali has written is The Complete Guide on How to Negotiate, Master the Art of Getting What You Want in Business and in Life. And just real quickly mention again, as maybe somebody's tuned in a little bit late in the conversation, your website and how they would find you on Amazon if they want to pick up this book.
Thank you, Melody. The website where you can buy the book is Tali, it's T as in Tom, A-L-I, Raphaeli is my last name, that's R-A-P as in Paul, H-A-E-L-Y as in yes.com. There's a link on there to buy the book. It takes you right to the Amazon link. You can also go directly to Amazon, and when you do so, you can just type in my name. That's the easiest way to find this book. And again, the name is Tali, T as in Tom, A-L-I, and then the last name. If you actually just type in, I think, R for my last name, so Tali space and an R, it'll take you right to me there, Tali Raphaeli. And then once you click on my name in Amazon, it takes you right to the book.
Awesome. So in your book, you created 45 fundamentals. Now that's a lot. The book isn't super thick, so it's not a big, hard, long read. It's a nice, handy kind of a guidebook size. But you've got 45 fundamentals to guide the reader's thinking when negotiating. Which of these are the most important, and what is the Raphaeli takeaway? And why is it, now, I would have not thought about this because I don't know, maybe this is just kind of against how I go, but why is it important to be willing to bluff?
Well, because a lot of times you may not have much leverage, and the other party may be thinking that their position is really strong because they don't think you have many options. So if that's the case, depending on what kind of person you're dealing with, or what kind of company you're dealing with, or the situation, they may try to get a better deal from you than you're willing to really give them. And then what you have to rely on is you have to rely on other fallback strategies. So you don't have as much leverage. They know you don't have as many options. You haven't been able to create a certain level of competition. So you have other things that you can rely on. One is a bluff called the Raphaeli takeaway. And what you're doing is you're demonstrating to the other party that at the end of the day, you're willing to walk away if you don't get a good deal. They need to know that you can walk away, and we've all been in negotiations in life where you know, on the one hand, you know you can't walk away. You need that shiny new car. That is the car of your dreams. You've been saving up all your money for 2 years. That is the damn car you want no matter what. It's exactly that. You want that exact color, those exact options, and there's only one of them around. And the other person sees how serious you are, how much you want this car, how much you love it. You brought all your friends, you brought your parents. This is a big day for you. That person's not going to necessarily give you the best deal because they know how bad you want it. So when you show someone that you want it that bad and you just can't walk away, they're not going to be willing to make concessions because they know that they've got you pretty much. So on the other hand, of course, if you look at it from another point of view, you've been in situations, we all have, where you know that there's another side has just wanted something so badly that you felt like you could say no to some of the things that they were requesting. So what you do, and so you've taken that situation and you use it to your advantage, and they probably didn't get as good of a deal as they could have because you knew that information. So with the Raphaeli takeaway, what you're doing is you're demonstrating that you're willing to walk away. Life will go on if I don't get this deal. And what that does is, even if they feel like you have no options, they're saying to themselves, okay, well, you know what? She may not have any options, but she still is willing to figure something else out. We've backed her into a corner, and she's going to somehow be creative, and she's going to come up with another way to do this, or she's changed her mind, and she doesn't need it that badly. When you do that, now you've created some leverage for yourself. They see that you can walk away, and now they're going to be a lot more willing to make some concessions for you and give you what you want. And in the book, I also demonstrate that there's really not a big chance you're taking here, because I also go into how you can basically call back your bluff, how you can recall your bluff, how you can take away your bluff, and how you can recover from your bluff. So, because the bluff, it's basically you're bluffing if you really want it badly. You're showing them that you want it, that you can live without it, but in reality, you really can't. So you're doing the Raphaeli takeaway, and you're seeing where that gets you. If they respond and they start giving in to you on certain things, great. If not, I go over in the book how you can recover from that, where you're not showing any more desperation than you did before the bluff, and you're still coming from a position of strength, and you still have some leverage. It depends on how you do it. You've got to be creative in the way you come back from that bluff, and I go into the details on that as well.
Yeah, it would seem that you'd have to be really creative in coming back from a bluff, because then they might think you're even more desperate, and then they're really not going to give anything up.
Well, Melody, I'll share one thing with the coming back from the bluff. I mean, basically, one of the things that I cover in the book, and when I coach people on negotiating, is I explain when you come back and you try to open discussions again. First of all, very important that you actually do your bluff in a way that I demonstrate in the book, so that you actually have left yourself open to come back, and you do so in a way where when you do come back, because of the words that you've said and the way that you've handled your bluff, it's very easy for you to come back. You've also made it very easy for them to come back to you. So it's very important that you use the right wording and the right strategies when you actually do your bluff. And then when you come back, you don't make it about, hey, I can't live without this thing. Instead, you make it about the personal aspect. You say, hey, it's really sad, and we put a lot of time into this whole thing. I'm really upset about the fact that we kind of got this relationship going, and we came very far. I mean, think about how far apart we were. We came to this point right here. We're pretty close now. What do you think about maybe let's just talk about this again? Let's reopen discussions, because I'm just feeling like we failed. Like we failed together. So you make it a connection. You make it that the negotiation is something you're doing together. And that's kind of the sense that I always tell everybody that kind of always remember is we're working on this together. We have a common goal here to make this happen. So if we didn't make it happen, I'm saying, I'm kind of sad that we couldn't do this. I feel like we failed. Let's talk again. You're not saying I'm going to give you what you want or what you asked for. Let's just open up the talks again. And again, in the book, I go into the specific details of how to do that.
I like that. I like that because negotiation, I think in my mind, and it may be true in other people's minds, that it sounds like it's me against them or me against you. And I like the idea of creating this connection, so it's us against a problem we're trying to solve or an agreement that we're trying to come to. So what are some of the ways that me as the negotiator can create and maintain this connection with whoever I'm trying to negotiate with?
Well, you always have to keep in mind the personal element, the human element to all discussions. I mean, at the end of the day, you're dealing with a person or people, so you make those connections. You make sure that you come across as likable, and that's very important in all aspects of life. People deal with people they like. They buy from people they like. So the likability is very important. And how do you do that? You show people respect. You show people deference. You show people that there's a genuine care about them as people. You don't take advantage of people. You're not insulting. You're not condescending. You don't come off as arrogant. So you make that connection with people. That's first and foremost. And throughout the process, there's certain wording that I teach people to use and certain attitudes that you have throughout the whole process. When you have these attitudes, the other side can't help but notice it. That, hey, we're in this together. Can you help me out here? It's all in the wording. It's all in the attitude. But it starts when I teach people, they see that there's a whole different attitude. And like you just said, Melody, it's not me against you. It's us against basically us working together to make this thing happen. We're a team. We're connected here. We both have the same common goal. People always say, how do you come together when you have different goals? No, we have the same goal. The goal is to agree. The goal is to get this done. So when you do that, it's amazing, so you frame your wording and you frame your thoughts first and foremost, and then the other party starts seeing that, and before you know it, you've enlisted them to feel the same way, and it becomes kind of fun, and everything changes, and that's why you don't have the confrontations.
Yeah, I like that. That makes me, just that right there makes me feel a lot more friendly towards the concept of negotiating. I like that a lot. So, okay, you mention in your book about how to make low offers. So, and you don't want to be insulting. So how do you do this? Okay, you've got this conversation going where it's us against not necessarily against, but us working together towards an agreement. But when you come in with a low offer, does that kind of blow it all out? I mean, how do you do that without being insulting?
Well, if you know that it's a really low offer and you know the other side is going to think it's very low, then you know what you can do is you can apologize. You can make them aware, hey, I'm coming in really low here. Well, first let me back up and first say there's a way to find out what that insulting number can be. So if you know how to use the strategies, you can actually even ask them questions that will tell you what the low point is, where they know if you offer that number, they're going to be insulted. So you start there. How do you do that? You make that connection, which I demonstrate in the book, and then you ask questions. You ask the right questions. You listen for the responses. So if they're asking for $500,000 for their house, what you can say is look, we're doing this is a little bit out of our budget here, but we really like this house. Can you I'm going to talk to my realtor about making an offer, but it's going to probably be a little bit low just because we're really trying to reach here, and this is really kind of out of our price range, but we're hoping maybe we can come together and work things out here. Maybe you guys are a little flexible. Can you just tell me, is there a number, is there a range that you know would just definitely be out of the question? If you say things along those lines, they may say to you, well, I'll tell you right now, if it's got a 3 in front of it, I'm not even going to respond to you. Well, they just told you that anything at $400,000 or above, they're going to at least counteroffer. They're going to at least think about. They're going to at least consider. Look at what you've just done. You just saved yourself a lot of money. Now, if you make an offer of $410 or $415 or $405, you at least know there's going to be a response. So now you don't have to go up to $480 or $490. You've done that just by asking the right questions and by listening. And that's just one of many examples. And then, as you go low, and again, you've explained to them, look, I know it's just a starting point, but we're really trying to be careful. You give them reasons. You have to justify why you're going low. You can't just make somebody feel like, hey, I'm going low because I want to try to take advantage of you. That's not what this is about. You're not taking advantage of anybody. You're going low because you saw another house that is almost as nice, it's a lot less expensive, or you realize that there's a lot of remodeling that has to be done. You don't insult them. You just say, hey, this is beautiful. It's just not really what we were going to do. You give them reasons why you would have to go low because you still need some money reserved for some other things, or you're comparing it to something else that was a lot less. If you do it in a way that's not insulting, you're not going to have any problems. And I go over all that in the book, of course, as well.
And that makes so much sense. And then I think, like you said, giving them the reasons behind why you're asking, what's the lowest you'll go. Because I was wondering, as you were saying it, why would they tell you? Why would they tell you what their low number is? If they want $500,000, what compels them? And you just kind of answered that by just giving them those reasons. We're on a budget. We have another house we're looking at. So then they've got some motivation to kind of, show their cards so that they can say, well, this is where I'm coming from. It sounds like there's some thought that goes into negotiation before you ever sit down to have the discussion. How do you go through that process where you're kind of figuring out, well, if they say this, I'll say that, and kind of figuring out like what your own range is for negotiation? Sit down with me, so to speak. You're getting ready to go in to negotiate something. What's some of the mental preparation that you go through?
Well, first, you have to prepare for the fact that you want to make a connection. So that's very important. You have to make sure that you remember to treat the other person with respect, be cooperative. You've got to put the emphasis and the stress and the burden on you to create that atmosphere. So the first thing is make sure that even if they don't start off that way, if they see it, because a lot of people are going to come in and they're going to be like, all right, they're going to see it as a conflict. So it's on you. So I always prepare, first of all, let's get the connection going. Let's make small talk. Let's get to know each other. Let's ask questions. Let me demonstrate that I listen very effectively. Let me respond to their answers in ways they know that I care, because I do care about every single person I meet, and that's very important. So you basically first get yourself ready for the fact that I want to create this atmosphere of cooperation. That's number one, and you have to go in with that state of mind. Besides that, you have to be open-minded. You have to also be very willing to embrace the fact this person may have a very, very different personality than me or than anybody else I'm used to. This person may be a very difficult person. This person may be very short and very, very closed off, very defensive. I'm not going to judge. I'm going to come into this negotiation, and I'm going to give this person the benefit of the doubt. I am dealing with this person. This is as they come. This is who they are, and I've got to adjust to them. I can't expect them to adjust to me. I need to adjust to them. I need to speak in their language. So you're getting all that stuff ready. And that's, at the end of the day, and what I teach is this is really how you want to live your life all day, every day. So at the end of the day, to walk into a negotiation, it's really the same way and the same frame of mind that you have wherever you go and whatever you're doing. But these are very important things. And, of course, you've got to do your homework. You've got to know the facts. So before you go into a negotiation, that goes without saying, you better be aware of what the numbers are. You better be aware of what the options that they have are, your options, history, precedents, that kind of stuff. And you've got to know your goals. You've got to know your priorities. You've got to know what things you need to have, what things you're maybe you don't necessarily need and not as necessary. You have to know all these things. So you have to first you have to very much so understand what you want, what you're trying to get out of negotiation. If you don't know that, you're not going to have a really tough time saying yes to anything.
Right. That's true. You have to have some very specific goals out of the conversation. There's usually, not always, but usually there's some kind of timelines or other specifics that kind of box you in a particular negotiation. How do you assess what those really are as they're coming from the other side? Like, is there really a deadline to make this work by Tuesday? Is that a hard deadline or is that a soft deadline? How do you go about assessing some of that?
Very, very good question. What you first have to do is you've got to listen so carefully. So when they give you a deadline, you've got to, as you're listening and as you're making more conversation and you're getting more information, because again, you're trying to do less talking and more listening, and you're hoping the other party's doing more talking and less listening, so you're getting more information. Your info bucket that you came in with that was empty is getting filled up as they speak, and that bucket just keeps getting more and more full with valuable information about everything, about them, about the process, about their goals. So you have to really understand what they're trying, what is it they're trying to, what are they trying to really accomplish here? And when they give you a deadline, are they doing this because they lack leverage and they're just trying to rush you because that's going to create leverage for them? Hey, if you don't do this now, a lot of times you see it in sales offers. Act fast. You got to do this by today, or the offer's off the table. Car dealerships do this a lot. Different appliance dealerships may do this. So they're imposing their leverage by giving you a deadline. And you have to say to yourself, is this just a gimmick? Is this just a way for me to have to act faster because they don't want me to think about it? They want me to shop around? So you have to really ask questions. And you can say, so what happens on July 31st? Are you saying on July 31st, if I don't do this by then, that the price is going to go up? And they say, yes. Okay, well, what's it going to go up to? It may only go up, a couple dollars. So get the facts. Don't assume anything. Get the facts. And you can ask questions. So what if I do it within a week after that? And they'll probably say to you, we'll honor it. We don't usually tell people that, but yeah, you have some more time. Before you know it, you just bought yourself another week just by asking the right questions. So you first have to assess whether it's a real deadline. Now, sometimes you're dealing with a real deadline. Food may spoil. Somebody may be going out of town. A lease may be expiring. When you have an actual real deadline, then, of course, you've got to move faster, and you've got no choice but to abide by that deadline. But a lot of times deadlines are just imposed either for leverage or because people know that negotiations take longer than they'd like, so they try to speed things up by putting in artificial deadlines just to get the ball rolling. Doesn't mean that they have to be adhered to.
Right. So, and then you can also turn that around and use that on your side as well to, motivate someone to not think about it too long, those kinds of things. So, it seems like I had another question, and I lost my train of thought, and it's, so what would you say, just kind of give me an overview, because we're kind of coming to the end of our time. We've got about a little more than 15 minutes left, but just kind of give me an overview or some of just like the basic skills of a good negotiator.
Oh, God, there's so many. I mean, one thing you have to do is you always have to keep some chips in your pocket. You always have to kind of keep some cushion there. So what I mean by that is never come in with your best. A lot of times people like to say, hey, I'm going to cut right to the chase. Here's what I'm willing to pay you. I'm willing to pay you $50, and they've already reduced So basically, they could have maybe said 30 or 40, but they went right up to their top number, 50. Well, they're trying to cut things short. They're trying to show that they're a good person. They don't want to go back and forth. What they've done is they've created a big problem and disadvantage for themselves, because oftentimes in negotiations, other side items come up. So it could be the length of time that the item is going to take to be delivered. It could be how much shipping costs. It could be so many things that we don't think about at first. There's other things that could come up. What about the warranty? What about this? What about that? What about which party is actually storing it? Which party is picking it up? Which party is paying the delivery? I mean, it could be anything. And what's happened is, because you've basically given your best price, you have no room left. So now what happens is, if you say, it's hard for you to say no to anything because you have nothing left. If instead you said, you start off by saying, I'm going to pay $40, knowing that you would actually pay $50, you left yourself with $10, which is 20% still, left over as cushion. So now what happens is, if they say to you, well, we need you to come do this, pick this up by tomorrow. So you say, you know what, I can't pick it up tomorrow. Why don't you give me an extra week to pick it up, and in turn, I'll add another $10 to the price. So now they say, okay, that's a fair trade, because you've left yourself with some cushion there, some chips in your pocket to be used for a side item or to be used if something else came up. Very, very important. People don't like doing that because they want to show that they're, hey, I'm not trying to negotiate with you. They see negotiation as a bad word. So I think a very important thing is negotiation is not a bad word. You can be strong and you can stand your ground and still be very likable and still come up as a very good person, as long as you're respectful and as long as you make it about the issues and not about the person. So that's very important. Leave yourself some openings. Be aware of situations where people are bidding against themselves. And I mean, it's a lot better to get someone to bid against themselves than to find that you're doing it. And I'll give you an example of that. You may offer somebody $100 for something that they're selling, and they may look at you and they may say, "That's crazy. We were never going to even consider taking $100. We can't. There's no way to take $100. That's too low." What most people will do in that position is they'll say, okay, well, would you take $150? They'll come up with another number. Well, guess what they've just done? Without even realizing it, you just bid against yourself because you just put in two numbers in a row. You did 100 and you did 150. That's not how you negotiate successfully. Instead, you put it back on the other person. Okay, if that's too low, why don't you tell me what would work? Now they come back with a number of, they may say 140. So now you're at 100 and they're at 140. You're $40 apart, and you work it out. Instead, the first person who did not have my negotiation skills, did not learn from me, they went ahead and they jumped up to 150 and bid against themselves. The better, the skillful negotiator instead waited for the other person to then come up with the number, and now they're at 140. So it's very important. So it's very important to realize when you're bidding against yourself. It happens so quickly, people don't realize it. Never do that. And what you say to somebody is, well, would you mind just giving me a number because I don't want to bid against myself? And people understand that, okay, I'll give you a number. You have to give you a high number. Put it back on them so you're not bidding against yourself. Those are all very important. I cover all these types of tactics in the book. People don't realize that the negotiation is going on, and in the heat of the moment, and you're crunching numbers in your head, and you're listening, and you're thinking of what you want to say. You don't pay attention to these things because they happen so quickly. So very, very, I'm sorry, Melody. I think you're about to ask a question.
And no, I was going to say, I was just thinking, I was kind of playing your scenario in my mind, and I was thinking about, sometimes there's other people involved in the negotiation that may not be there. Excuse me. So, for example, if you're, you're talking about the price of a house or the price of something at a garage sale, estate sale or something, sometimes there's a spouse involved, and they're the ones that are kind of pulling the strings in the background, but you're not talking to them. So how do you work with a situation like that?
That's a tough situation. You've got to do your best to not be in a situation like that. So if you find there's somebody else involved in the negotiation, you do your best to say, well, where is that person? Can we all get together here? Because because here's what will happen. You're going to offer, let's just say you're at a flea market or a yard sale, and you offer $20 for an item. And they say, well, that's too low, but my wife is not going to accept that. Let me go check with her real quick. And what's happening is every time so then a couple minutes go by, he goes and checks with his wife. Wife comes back and says $40. It's taken a couple minutes. You then come back quickly with your number. Their numbers are taking longer. Your numbers are quicker. Before you know it, you're going to be bidding against yourself without realizing it. You don't want to have the situation where they're playing good cop, bad cop, because what happens is this husband is using that to his advantage potentially, because he's going to say, hey, listen, I'm sorry, I'm the reasonable guy here. I mean, I want you to like me. My wife, she's just really tough. I mean, this is how she is. She's just very, very tough. She's not going to accept this or that. He's blaming somebody who's not there. But if she was there, she probably wouldn't let him do that. So if she was there, you see what? It's a good old, it's a good cop, bad cop trick that people fall for all the time, because the person who's not there isn't there to defend themselves and have that human element. You want the human element as much as possible. If he can just blame it on his wife who's not there and say, oh, she's just mean, just really just tough lady, you're not going to do well. But if the wife was there, it would change everything, because she'd be the sweet lady who would be willing to work things out with you, just like he would. So it's very important, whether it's a husband, a wife, an accountant, an attorney, a partner. People do this very, very often. So you say to them, I really prefer to just have everybody negotiating together, and then nobody can do the good cop, bad cop routine on you. And that's really important. I mean, and it happens all the time. So now if you can get the person there, let's just say, well, the person's out of town, whatever it might be, we can't get them on the phone, then make them aware of the fact that you know what's going on. So you may say something like, well, it looks like you guys are using the old good cop, bad cop routine on me, huh? So do you make them aware of the fact that you know what's going on? Sometimes it's true and they're not doing anything wrong. It just happens to be that the person is not available. But you still make it. So now when the husband tries to blame the wife, you say something like, you're doing that good cop, bad cop thing on me again. You make it a fun thing. You make it a nice conversation. You joke around about it. You make them aware that you know what's going on, but you don't get mad. You don't get angry. You can bring things up in a joking manner, and the person gets the point.
And it sounds to me like that time is a really important tool in negotiating. So, you talked about your answers are quicker, and they go back and talk to the other party who's not available, and that takes a little bit longer. That element of time is really important. So, is there a way to use that in my favor? Yes, this is something that it's a collaboration, and I want this whole thing to work out for both our benefit. But how do I get time back on my side? Maybe not in that particular situation, but just in general. How do I get time on my side? Because it seems like it's an important tool.
Yeah, Melody, keep in mind when they use that good cop, bad cop thing, what's happening is their increments, when they go up or down in price, it's always a big deal. It's a big ordeal. He's got to go ask his wife. We got to wait for her to come back, and he's got to wait to get hold of her. Then he's got to come back and tell you. So it's a big ordeal. It's a big process for them to make any move. Whereas for you, you're just like, okay, I'll raise another $5 or this or that. When they make a bigger deal about their moves and about their increments than you do, naturally what's going to happen is their moves are going to be more stressed, and it's going to seem like they're doing more. So how do you get time on your side? I mean, you basically just have to, usually, I mean, not in that situation, because that's a little bit of a different situation, but normally you slow things down. You slow things down. You don't let people rush you. When you slow things down and you show people that you're not in a rush, there's that leverage that you've already created for yourself, because they realize, okay, this person, this is not do or die. This person doesn't have to have this right now. Because when you create that, I need this right now, this immediate sort of sense of urgency, unless there's a good reason for it that you can justify, like, we've got to do this now, and if you can enlist the other party in realizing why it has to be done now, then it's okay. If not, though, what's going to happen is time is not on your side, because they see that you're stressed about getting this done. They may not have that same impending deadline. To them, they might not realize why it has to be done so fast. So you've lost leverage. So just slow things down. Slow things down. Let yourself assess things. Let yourself gather facts. That's the best way to use time, really. And understand that negotiations oftentimes take place over several conversations, sometimes over several weeks or months, depending on what you're buying, of course. And on the flip side, obviously, if you see a great deal and you've done your research and you feel like this is an accurate, legitimate deal, and you feel like you're getting a great situation here and you're getting a great deal, then sure, pull the trigger and make it happen. But oftentimes, especially when we're talking about a bigger negotiation, maybe it involves a house or some big item. You want to slow things down. You want to take your time and let things kind of happen naturally.
And it seems to me like you can kind of get a sense of where urgency is it? Are they anxious to make the deal? By slowing things down, you might be able to draw that out to see, oh, they are motivated by time, or they're not motivated by time at all. So that's not something, that would really, you could use as a tool to get them to move one way or the other on the situation. So this has been a lot of fun. Your book was a great book. It's kind of, well, I want to say it's, how do I want to say this? It's a small book, but it's powerful. You know what I mean? There's lots of really to the point, specific guidelines, and I feel like I got a lot out of the book. I would highly recommend it to my listeners. It's useful in personal relationships. It's useful on the job. It's useful, negotiating real estate, a car, at a garage sale. It's very powerful, and I want to thank you for sharing the book with me and sharing your time with me. Now, just as we started our conversation before the show actually started, you talked about some other things that you're doing. You're speaking, and you've got another book underway. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing and how my listeners can connect with you and be a part of the future of what you're doing.
Well, thank you for asking, Melody. I appreciate that. I do a lot of motivational speaking. I focus on helping people get more fulfillment, enjoyment, happiness out of their life, accomplishing their goals, overcoming obstacles, thinking positive, doing away with negative thoughts, self-fulfilling prophecies. It's all in perspective. Everything that happens to you, an event happens, and it's how you interpret it that really changes your world and changes your life. So, yeah, I talk about all those things as I speak. People can go onto my website, which is Tali Raphaely.com, T as in Tom, A-L-I, Raphaeli is R-A-P as in Paul, H-A-E-L-Y.com. On there, I'll be putting a schedule of my speaking engagements. And the second book is going to be more geared towards the motivational speaking that I do. It's going to be on all the topics I just addressed, being more positive, getting more out of life, getting enjoyment out of connections with others, and all those types of things, which I really love and I really, really passionate about. And so that's what I speak about. That's what I've been going around and doing the motivational speaking about, and that's going to be the topic of the next book that I've already been working on.
And I'm going to put you on the spot here because we've got like 3 minutes left, so I'm not going to give you much time, but give me a nugget, a story, because you talk about overcoming, you talk about how you respond is kind of the defining factor on what you get out of a situation. Can you give me like a 25 words or less, a story?
I'll give you a story. It might not be 25 words, but here's a good one. There's a father commits an armed robbery and ends up being in jail for life. And he has twins, 2 boys who he leaves behind. And he's in jail for life, and they've got a family friend who's watching over the 2 kids. And everything is great, and then eventually the family friend basically loses touch with the 2 kids. Now that about 20, 30 years later, the kids are both old, grown up, and he wants to find the kids and see how their lives are going. And he finds the first kid, and turns out the son is in jail. And he says to the son, what happened to you? Why are you in jail? And the son says, well, with a father like I had who committed armed robbery and is serving a life sentence, how else could I have turned out? He can't believe it, but he goes to see the second son. He finds the second son is very happy, living in a big, beautiful home, has a beautiful wife, 3 beautiful children, has a great job, as happy as can be. And the family friend says to that son, how do you think you turned out this way? And the son says, with a father like I had who committed armed robbery and spent his life in jail, how else could I have turned out? Two people with the same, very, very similar, obviously the same background, the exact same trigger event happened to both of them at the same time in their lives. One chose to use it one way, another chose to use it another way. It was all interpretation. So it's amazing, but that's a very accurate depiction of what happens in our lives. Something happens to you, and it's how you react to it. It's what you do with that information, how you interpret it. That affects whether you have a good life or a bad life. It's like that all day long, every day.
That is so true. Well, I look forward to hearing more from you, reading more of your materials, and finding out about some of your speaking engagements. I want to thank you very much for being on the show, and I want to say thank you to all my listeners for tuning into the show. And whether you're listening to my live show or the archive, thank you. I really work hard to design this show so that it's of benefit to you, the small business owners, how to get more business. And this is a perfect, negotiation is number one, if not number one, number two, the perfect topic on understanding and applying this information on how to get more business. You can listen to the archive for this show and future shows at getmorebusinessshow.com. Make sure you also find out about the grant, the educational grant. It's a $5,000 educational grant. You want to make sure you get in with that, and that is at northwestschoolofbusiness.com/grant. And then I want to end quickly. Tali, tell us again, one more time, the title of your book and how they can find it.
Thank you, Melody. It's the complete guide on how to negotiate, master the art of getting what you want in business and in life. Easiest way is to either go on my website, which is Tali, T as in Tom, A-L-I, Raphaeli, R-A-P as in Paul, H-A-E-L-Y as in yes.com. On there you'll see a link for buy the book. You can also go directly to Amazon.com. If you go to Amazon, you can just type in my name. The book will come right up. And you could just type my first name, which is T as in Tom, A-L-I, and then space, and then just type in R, and that'll take you right to Tali Raphaely. You click on that, and it'll take you right to the book.
All right. Thank you very much, and we'll be talking again soon. Make sure you contact me when you come out with your next book.